Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Jaren, I am full of edamame.
That's great, Matt. That's great. Matt, did you have a good dinner tonight? Because from what you're saying right now, I too wish... No, I'm actually full of wings right now, so I'm not sure how this episode will go. But how was your dinner before, us getting together for our weekly mistake discussion?
Jaren, I don't know if you can consider this dinner. Because, Jaren, sometimes I get on like food kicks where I just start repeatedly eating the same food over and over and over again.
Okay.
And right now I'm on an edamame kick. And Jaren, I think my dinner, or technically my last like quote unquote meal, was just 4 bags of edamame.
That, Matt, I'm pretty sure you're missing on a few food groups there. But hey, Matt, if you're enjoying yourself, I can't blame you for that.
No, Jaren, it's okay. I'm taking a multivitamin, so that covers everything. That's how that works.
That's fine, Matt. That's definitely how it works. And how this show works is us sharing our many mistakes of the week. Matt, remember last week when I told you about probably my quote-unquote worst purchase of 2022 in Ubisoft's Riders Republic? Matt, I finally got around to playing some Riders Republic this week. For those that don't know, Riders Republic is essentially the spiritual successor to Steep, which is a Ubisoft, when I say open world, more like open mountain, I believe, where it was purely a snowboarding and I believe skiing game. But Riders Republic is essentially this big open world. And when I say open world, it's just full of different mountains and outdoor areas for you to, do outdoor activities, the extreme sports variety. And you're able to use a number of different, essentially, vehicles, from BMX bikes to snowboards to wingsuits and a lot of different fun, vehicles overall. And I think it's wrapped in this pretty much Monster Energy, Red Bull, hey, let's do some sick tricks, that essential aesthetic that we've kind of seen in Forza Horizon, but this is kind of cranked up to 11 because of it's an extreme sports festival of sorts and a celebration of essentially everything within that aesthetic. And Matt, I told you that I'm usually looking for a good, hey, I want to sit down, unwind, and really just immerse myself in a arcadey open world where I can just turn my brain off, put on a podcast, and go. And I was in a Riders Republic open beta, I believe, and this is essentially a game that really scratches that itch, in theory at least, where I'll put on a podcast, go on a dirt mountain course, and go downhill on a bike, and you just vibe out. And I think for the most part, Riders Republic does that pretty well, where you can just really get into the zone, pick one of the vehicles that they offer, and just go at it. But Matt, it's a thing that we've talked about on this podcast previously before, but the idea of a Ubisoft open world and essentially bringing up that map and seeing a vomit of icons. And I think one of the first things that really got to me with Riders Republic, at least with the full release, is I said it. That's what I want out of this game. I just want to go in, relax, spend a few minutes on the mountain, and go about my day. But when you start off Riders Republic, you do have essentially the tutorial phase where they slowly introduce you to downhill mountain biking and then bring you to snowboarding, like the trick section, just to learn the different mechanics. And there's something about the progression that really goes against what I actually want from this game, because when you do a certain event, you earn stars, and the more stars you unlock, or you earn, you'll unlock different career paths, which open up different activities. Just because you don't get all the vehicles at once, you kind of have to, get your bearings down, unlock a few stars, so unlock a few career paths, and then unlock all of those. So you start off with the mountain bike, you do the mountain bike stuff, you go into the snowboard stuff, you do the trick stuff, and the tutorial essentially takes maybe 20 minutes or so before you're able to go do what you want. Basically customize your character, bring up the map, go around, and free roam. And the thing that really made me annoyed, just because I was in that mindset of I want to skip all of this, I just want to go to the top of one of the mountains and just go downhill, is that when you complete the tutorial, of course, you'll unlock a number of stars. And when you unlock a number of stars, you'll unlock more events and more things to do. And Matt, once I completed the tutorial and I brought up the map for the first time, it does the thing where, hey, you just unlocked a bunch of different events. Here's all of the different events you unlocked. The issue is they go through one by one all the different events you have unlocked. So it will say, hey, you unlocked this trick, the snowboarding trick, you unlocked this race, you unlocked this trick, you unlocked this race, and it goes one after the other. And the biggest issue is, since you've just done the tutorial, since you've unlocked a bunch of stars, since you've unlocked all these career choices, the first time you open up that map, I lost count of how many events were unlocked, and it's going one by one by one. And the biggest issue was that it wasn't grouped up together. It was, hey, you unlocked this event in this corner of the map. Let's slowly take a few seconds to go to this corner of the map because you unlocked this, and then let's go back to this corner, you unlock that. And it legit took like 2 or 3 minutes to finally give me back control. And by that point, I was like completely out of it, where I feel like that was such a design blunder, where there are way better ways you could illustrate that. And maybe if I was 10 years younger, Matt, I think I would have let that slide. But, we're both older now. We both have limited time that we can really dedicate to a video game. And I feel like this is something I wanted to ask you, Matt, now that we're, in our early 30s. Do instances like that in video games kind of stick out to you more, where it really does feel like they're not necessarily respecting your time? Or are you still kind of glazing over, or does that stuff not really stick out to you and you kind of glaze over it?
For that one in particular, I think I would be kind of annoyed at it, just because the way that you're describing it, it sounds like it's kind of just a pseudo like button mash to get through all of these.
I couldn't even button mash through it. It would literally show you this event, say this is unlocked, and then go to the next. There was no skip. I was holding, I was trying everything. I was pressing down escape on my keyboard, holding down B, mashing the start button on my controller, trying to see what I could do. But I was sort of hoping that it would just be, hey, here's all the different snowboard things you've unlocked. Here's all the different mountain bike stuff you unlocked. And I don't know, Matt. It's one of those things where I just really wanted to get into the game and do my own thing. But even after the tutorial, even after that lengthy thing, I was kind of out of it afterwards. And, eventually that passed and I was able to finally get into the game. And then Riders Republic offers kind of 2 different control schemes, and one that's more centered around racing, that gives you that makes your right analog stick control the camera, so you can actually position it just to see, how should I take this turn, or this is coming up, how should I take that? Or you can switch to a trick control scheme where the right stick, there's no camera control, but the right stick controls your essentially your rotation, your back flips and front flips, and that's cool. But the thing that really was interesting to me was the different landing modes that they have. So essentially there are 3 landing modes in Riders Republic. There's auto, where you do a trick, you let the trick go, and then it will level you automatically, and then you'll get the auto landing bonus or whatever. There's manual, where you hold the trick again, but you have to let it go at the correct angle so you're landing perfectly on whatever surface you're landing on, and then you'll get a manual landing bonus, and the more perfect bonuses you get or you get in a row, the more points you'll get. And then you have something reminiscent from the Steep games, where it's kind of a mix between the two, where you do the trick and then you let it go at the right moment so it would have another assisted landing, but it isn't as, say, blatant as the auto one. And when going through all the different trick challenges, at least, I noticed that for you to get some of the high scores, even for the early challenges, it really requires you to use manual. And again, unlocking stars gets you more progression through the game. You unlock different gear, different cosmetics, currency to unlock the at least in-game currency cosmetics. And I was wondering, Matt, when you play games that are centered around doing tricks, like an extreme sports game, do you have a preference? Or when you hear something about, hey, it has auto landing, it has the manual landing, do you have a preference between the two, or is it just whatever you're feeling at the time?
I don't think I ever would have considered something like using automatic landing, to be honest.
Right.
Like, that just in my head just sounds weird to me. Like when you said, oh, of course, like when you do the manual landing, that's how you do the score chasing, and I think that just makes sense, right? Like,
yeah,
I feel like the automatic is there for, I don't know, people who are just learning the game, like, and eventually you should be switching off of it.
Yeah.
What is sorry, I might have missed this. What is the third actually in between? Like, what does the third one actually do? Third landing mode?
Yeah, so this is reminiscent to the Steep game before, where it's kind of the same thing. So basically I should have said this earlier. So with auto, say I was to release a trick a bit early or a bit late, then the game would automatically make you land that way. With the Steep mode, you're essentially holding the trick and trying to release it at the right time. You wouldn't get okay. So essentially, you're not trying to land it properly like the manual mode, where you're supposed to angle it, get a perfect landing. But with the Steep landing, it's if you release it, say, at the right moment, it will automatically land there. But if you were to release it a bit later or a bit early, you might bail there. So it's kind of like between the automatic one and the manual one. So it's not as punishing as the manual one, but it's not as forgiving as the auto one. I think that's like a good balance. That's the one I've been using right now as I kind of get used to the control scheme, just because unlike, say, something like the Tony Hawk games or the SSX games, where I'm used to holding down, say, the X button or the A button to prep an ollie or prep a jump, with Steep, it's, say I'm using the race mode where all the for face buttons control it's kind of like you hold down one of the face buttons and then you hold the opposite button to do your rotation. So for example, if I'm holding A or X, I prep that for essentially the ollie, quote unquote. I pop it and then I go hit Y so I can do the front flip. And that's kind of something I'm getting used to, just because I'm kind of used to releasing the A button or the X button and then using my right trigger to do the rotation or to do grabs and stuff like that. So it's a different trick system that I'm used to. But yeah, that's where I'm coming from right now, trying to get used to the landing methods, gradually trying to graduate from the Steep one to the manual one, and honestly not really caring about the story, just because it is, that it's what you expect from it. So I'm kind of skipping over that where I can and just trying to get to the next new mountaintop so I can just go downhill again. I think one of the things that is also making me wary of the game is, Matt, it's a pseudo live service game where you have your weekly challenges, you have a seasonal battle pass to unlock more cosmetics and whatnot. And as someone who, again, played Forza Horizon 5 for the better part of a year, doing weeklies, trying to get the seasonal, unlocks, it's just kind of burning on me right now, Matt. So I'm trying to take a step back from that, not really caring, not trying to buy into the FOMO. Matt, as I said, it's a resolution, Matt, trying not to buy into the FOMO of these service games. And other than that, I'm just enjoying my time there. But again, still have that bad taste in my mouth of that really jarring, hey, here's everything you unlocked, which at this point just kind of speaks to that Ubisoft map fatigue meme that, hey, it's still like this. But other than that, I'm sort of enjoying it. But I think that's probably the last time you'll hear me talking about it in the mistake zone.
Oh, damn.
Not that it's bad or anything. It's just like I don't have anything to add after this, where unless you want me to come back next week and say, hey, Matt, I went downhill real good this time again. So.
Wait, can you see, is this game like actual multiplayer, or is it just, or can you even see like random people on the open world map? Is it that kind of game?
So it is, but honestly, Matt, I'm not sure. So essentially when I'm going around the open world, I'm seeing a lot of players. When you open the map, you're supposed to see in theory, you're supposed to see all these players online, right?
Yeah.
And then, I'll see people just doing their own thing, doing tricks, crashing into things, etc. But when I open the map, Matt, there is like hundreds of player dots where I'm not knocking its player base right now. I don't know what its CCU is, but for some reason, I can't help but think of, are they doing, say, the Forza, the Forza thing when you're offline and you just grab random names from your friends list to put onto AI cars to drive around the area when you're offline. So I'm not sure how many of these are actually real people and if they're just populating it. But other than that, there are a lot of different people around, which, gives the illusion at the very least that this is a populated world full of life, full of people doing their own thing. But at the same time, I'm not actually sure if they're real or not.
Wait, can you emote at them?
You could, but I haven't tried to see if people would emote back to me.
Oh, I see.
I guess it's true, Matt. If I were to go to... So Riders Ridge is essentially the hub area with all the different kiosks and stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'll just go there next time I play and start emote dancing and see if a circle pops around me. Because, Matt, that's my surefire way to see if an MMO is alive.
Yep.
If I can go to the main hub area, start dancing, and if people will dance around me. So that's kind of like how I gauge when I play Fortnite to see if I'm playing against real people or bots, because I'll do my Metallica, so it's a sync emote where if one person does the emote and you see someone doing it, you can interact with them and then join in on their sync emote, where I purchased the Metallica Master of Puppets emote. So I'll start off a Master of Puppets emote, and if 3 other people come join me to form the full band and playing instruments, I'll know that I'm in a lobby full of people and I should be really scared. And if no one joins it, I know I'm in a bot lobby and I'm probably not going to have a good time either because of the lackluster experience. That will teach me bad habits.
Dang.
But yeah, man, that's Riders Republic. Maybe I'll report to you if I'm able to get a dance circle in the near future.
All right.
So Matt, speaking about Ubisoft, we have a article from Video Games Chronicle that they reported, or that they posted last week, that reports Ubisoft says it's surprised by Mario and Rabbids sequel Underperformance. Essentially, they reported in a financial update, the French publisher said it was facing major challenges in the face of tightening consumer spend, and claimed that sales over the key holiday season have been markedly and surprisingly slower than expected. Despite excellent ratings and player reception, as well as ambitious marketing plans, they were surprised by Mario and Rabbids Spark of Hope's underperformance in the final weeks of 2022 and early January. Matt, were you following the, road to launch of Mario and Rabbids Spark of Hope? Just because I feel like when the first Mario and Rabbids game came out, that was something that did you actually purchased the first game, or?
Jaren, I bought the first game. I honestly don't remember when or how I got it, but I did buy it, and I still haven't played it.
So this is why I wanted to bring up this report from Video Games Chronicle this week and kind of get your thoughts on why you also believe, based on our expertise, because of course we're experts in the video game field, Matt Alba, why you thought it underperformed. And again, this is something that when I first read this article, or that's kind of what I thought, just because, again, when the first Mario and Rabbids game came out way back then, I don't believe it was a launch Switch title, but it was near launch, just because I remember when I purchased the Switch for the first time, I had that shiny new toy honeymoon period where I just wanted so many games for it, because it felt like a really cool piece of tech, something that it was a portable I could bring on the go and have a genuine console experience. And with those rose-tinted glasses at the time, I feel like I was buying more games than I would usually buy. And, in some cases that gave me something like Golf Story. And I also purchased, I forget what the subtitle was, but I did also purchase the first Mario and Rabbids. And I don't know, when we fast forward to 2022, the Switch has been out for a good chunk of time right now. And even with the critical acclaim from not only the first one, but also from Sparks of Hope right now, I'm actually kind of surprised to see that Mario and Rabbids did underperform according to Ubisoft. And after my rambling there, man, when you see a headline like that, what are your first thoughts towards it?
I mean, I think my first initial thoughts are like to check if it actually did poorly or if it just did poorly by Ubisoft standards.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure that this game is like a multi-million-dollar seller. Like, I think it's easily like high millions, low tens of millions, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, I'm not surprised that this game didn't sell very well. I feel like this game came out, like, I think pretty close to Pokemon, if I remember correctly. And I feel like if you're going to go into the Nintendo space and you're going to release close to Pokemon, that's going to be a bad time for you.
Right.
Especially when you're expecting it to sell during the holidays. Like, I think that could be like a major thing with regards to why it sold poorly, like by Ubisoft standards. Also, Jaren, it's a Ubisoft game. Like, I don't want to like knock them by saying that or anything, but the idea of like, I think, at least to me, like if you're going into a franchise or going into Ubisoft franchise and you really want to play, you're gonna play right away. But I feel like for me, a lot of Ubisoft games fall into the I'll wait for a sale category.
Right.
And I feel like that's where this game fell as well. And also, I think it's also just like a result of it being a sequel, right? Like, or at least them calling it a sequel. Like, you're always gonna, I think, get lower sales on a sequel because it depends on like how big the initial install base was.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think like those are all things that like probably contributed towards this.
I think when I read this article for the first time, as I mentioned just earlier ago, the immediate thing I thought was the fact that with the first Mario and Rabbids game, it came out so close to release, so close to the launch of the Switch, where everyone was trying to get something to play on the system. And it says Mario on the box. People can give or take of the Rabbids. So at that point, there was so little choice in terms of what you can actually play on your new shiny system, where I could see it. And of course, Ubisoft titles do generally well. Plus, you have Mario on the cover, so I think it was an easy sale there. Fast forward several years later, I think that it becomes such a harder sell just because the platform, once again, is showing its age. You have so much more choice when it comes to what's currently out there. You know, as you said, there was Pokemon to come out as well, where I think even if it was critically acclaimed, I think you do kind of have a tougher time essentially selling it there just because there's so much more out there you can play now. And even with the big marketing push, as you said, I think Pokemon does have a big factor to it. But I also, one of the things that I also thought about was the fact that when I think about Mario and Rabbids, I think about, oh, here's baby's first XCOM experience. Here's baby's first, tactical combat experience as well, where I think for those people who initially bought into the Mario and Rabbids games, it might not have been a gameplay style that they were expecting, and maybe they got their fill with its predecessor, where with its sequel, you don't necessarily want to jump back into a game like that. Likewise, if you want something with tiles, you have Fire Emblem coming out in a few months, or even you have Three Houses right there. That's already released. So I think the Switch marketplace in itself is a bit more, there's a lot more choice now. And with the system showing its age, we saw rumors a few weeks ago that, hey, there might be an announcement for Nintendo's next console in 2023. So I don't know. I feel like the Nintendo Switch space is a bit weird right now. I think with the talks of, Tears of the Kingdom will be, the last big marquee Switch title, kind of says a lot as well. Where, I don't know, Matt. And I think, again, this is going to be unfair of me right now as well. But I preface this by saying I am a big Ubisoft fan in general. I just talked about Riders Republic, positively more or less. But I think after the novelty of the first Mario and Rabbids wore off, hey, here's Mario collabing with these Rabbids, here's them in an XCOM style game. I think the concept just isn't appealing to me anymore. Again, I said it before, people can give or take the Rabbids, and I don't know, I honestly feel like even though this is a Mario game, the fact that it has the Rabbids in it as well kind of makes it a bit off-putting for me, just because I'm not really a fan of them. So I don't know. It's the issue we have in general with collabs, where if you're playing a property, you're playing a gacha game, a mobile game, just any game in general, a base game, and if they collab with someone, you have to at least hope that whoever they're collabing with is of some interest to you for you to really properly appreciate that collab. And if it isn't, then who knows? But I think the sad part is if this featured a whole completely different cast, it would be something I'd be more into. But yeah, man, I can't get past the Rabbids portion just because I was never a fan of the Rabbids in general. For you personally, was that something that also kind of affected how you saw this game or how you viewed the sequel?
Yeah, like more so towards the first game, I was a lot more disinterested in it because of the Rabbids. I think if it was just sold as a Mario franchise tactical RPG,
yeah,
I probably would have played it more, or like been more willing to play it. But yeah, like I guess the same as you, the Rabbids don't really hold too much of a aren't that important to me, or like I don't have that much like care towards them.
Yeah. So
it didn't affect me, and probably also like negatively affect my opinion on wanting to ever play this game. But I don't know, Jaren. I've had it installed on my Switch for like a year and a half, so maybe I'll play it eventually.
Maybe, but yeah, I also feel that. So we're used to the mother of all Nintendo collabs in Super Smash Brothers, and you have something essentially with the same amount of care there. But I don't know, Matt, when I see that it's a Rabbids title, that honestly, I feel like I'm not the biggest fan of like the Mario franchise. Like I grew up with playing the Mario games, but it's not something I'll readily turn to when I'm bored. Like I loved Mario Odyssey, the Galaxy game. You know my history with the Mario games, but I'm not the biggest Mario fan, admittedly. And again, when they are collabing with the Rabbids, who are also a franchise that I'm not a big fan of, then it just really isn't appealing to me. I think if this was in the vein of, hey, it's Super Smash Brothers with this tactical aspect, maybe I'll be on board there. But
Jared, anything with the Super Smash Brothers aspect, I would like just dump money into.
Yeah. So I think that's where kind of the issue, that's kind of my, not necessarily issues, but why I foresee Sparks of Hope not really selling that much, or at least being lower than expected. But who knows, Matt? Ubisoft games do have a pretty long tail end. I ended up buying Riders Republic months away, so maybe it will eventually hit that sales goal that they set. But for now, I can kind of see why it might be under delivering.
Jared, if Nintendo ever puts out Super Smash Kart, I'm 100% in.
I feel like that's always been the dream, and I said it before, I think Nintendo really does have a missed opportunity just not putting more characters, or alternatively having some sort of mode that takes out all player and cart stats. Because, yeah, Matt, I said before, as much as I do want to buy into the booster courses, I would prefer more characters, preferably of the Super Smash variety. We already have... the Villager, we have Isabelle, we have Link, we have the Inklings. It's ripe. It's ripe for more characters, and maybe MK9. That's something we'll really look towards. But I don't know, Matt. I feel like that's always been the dream ever since Mario or Super Smash Brothers came out. So who knows? Maybe with the next installment, Matt, we're bound to see some new characters.
Jared, how about this? Super Smash Bros. Cross Tomodachi Life.
Man, Matt, have you played Tomodachi Life? I know they released something for the Switch a few years back, but that wasn't really something I touched. But that was always something I would love seeing streamers and VTubers get their hands on. But again, it wasn't necessarily something I got my hands on. Were you a fan of the Tomodachi Life releases?
I never touched the latest one. I did it more so when it was that kind of like 3DS side game. Just like messing around with Mii's and stuff. I never got like too deep into it, but like slice of life Super Smash Bros. Is something I would be into.
I feel like Super Smash anything, whether it be of the party variety, the kart variety, like I'm just thinking about what Nintendo's tried and true,
Oh, the sports games. Why are there more like sports crossovers actually?
I mean, we have Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, but not Super Smash Brothers at the Olympics. Honestly, get Square back on the phone, release Hoops 3-on-3. I personally loved the Mario basketball game on the 3DS.
Did Square make 3-on-3?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Square made 3-on-3. Oh. That's why all the Final Fantasy characters were in it as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
But yeah... just give me Super Smash Elite Beat Agents or Beat Agents. I'll take anything at this point, Matt. I feel, honestly, even though I said that I'm not the biggest fan of Mario, I feel like I'm a big fan of crossovers in the Super Smash variety. And where's that, Matt? I know they'll probably reboot Super Smash Brothers in some capacity for the next Nintendo console, but they should just branch out if Sakurai doesn't want to do it anymore. Give us more Super Smash and put them in different scenarios for us to consume. That's all I'm saying, Matt. That's all I'm saying.
Jaren, while we're on the sort of subject of rebooting games.
Okay.
Jaren, how'd you feel about rebooting your whole life on a new planet?
I don't know, Matt. As much as I don't like the planet we're on right now, the idea of starting over, Matt, I'm lazy. So the idea of starting over gives me a lot of anxiety. But Matt, something tells me you have some experience in this concept.
Jaren, I do. And it is through the game. I was a Teenage Exocolonist.
Okay.
And Jaren, I feel like I sort of got scammed into playing this game.
Matt, what is this game?
Jaren, when I went into this game, I was told that it was a roguelike deck building RPG with like it's pretty solid story component.
That sounds like something that would be my jam, Matt. Is it your jam?
That genre is my jam, but this game is not that genre.
Huh.
This game is a visual novel that has cards in it every so often.
Matt, that's as someone who dabbles in a lot of games that double as visual novels, and as someone who skips a lot of that portion of said games, this makes me. You just deflated all my interest with that sentiment.
Yeah.
But Matt, how's the visual novel portion, and how often do you see the deck building portion?
So the visual novel portion and the deck building portion actually cross together pretty well. The concept of the game is that you are a kid and it's like your 10th birthday and your family has been traveling on this spaceship basically your whole life because you guys are going to a new planet. And the whole premise of the game is basically that you're going to be building up this new colony for the next 10 years of your in-game life. And the way that they kind of intertwine the visual novel and the deck building is that obviously the visual novel is just going to be the story that is going on throughout the whole game. You're making choices and it like will take you down multiple branching paths. The way that the cards go in is that when you decide to do something in the story, like let's say as a kid you're going to go to class, the way that you're going to complete the class is by doing a kind of card mini game where you're basically just trying to like get a certain amount of points by playing cards in a certain way. And the game system is basically, okay, you have 3 suits of cards. They're like red, yellow, or blue. If you play matching colors, you get bonuses towards the points that those cards give. All the cards are like numbered like 1 through 9. And if you like play straights or you should play pairs, like you're basically just matching cards and making almost pseudo poker hands in order to get points. And like if you meet the threshold for like this class, like let's say this class is a difficulty of, I don't know, 50, you just have to play 50 points worth or play cards so that you can generate 50 points worth at least. The way that like it gets intertwined even more into the visual novel and the deck building is that the cards that you get are all memories. So like the yellow cards are all based on social memories. So at some point in the story, there's a point where like, oh, your colony is like getting attacked by wild animals. So you have the choice to get a red card by going out, and like the red cards are physical cards. So if you go out and you fight the monsters, you get like a red card in return. If you go and hide from the monsters, you get a blue card in return for like being intelligent. Or if you decide to like, oh, go help some of the younger kids who are crying, you get a yellow card because it's like a social component.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Like conceptually, I really, really like the concept. My only like really big issue with the card game portion is that I found it was a bit too easy once you create your deck, because like I think like any other card game, you gain more by specializing. And when you have like bonuses that come from, okay, all your blue cards are now this, or when you play like more than 3 blue cards together, you get this bonus, it heavily skews you towards one card color, which I think like it applies to like actually any RPG. It's like always like a bit harder to multi-class, for lack of a better word here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But overall, I think like this story is very interesting, just because the way that the time in this game takes place is that you have your whole like 10 years from age like 1 to the or not age 1, from the age of 10 till the end of age 19.
Yeah.
And every month, like it's a 12-month year just like on Earth, and every month you pick a major action to do, and then that's where you do like your card game, and then it advances to the next month. And it kind of just like things like that for the whole 10 years. And the choices that you make, I think, are actually kind of interesting, because like, oh, like which friends do you want to make as a kid? And how does that lead into, oh, when you're like a mid-teen, like which of these kids are more popular, which of these kids are going to be more helpful for you in terms of like, oh, if you want to be an engineer, you should have made friends with like the engineering kid when you were growing up. And I don't know. It's just I think the story itself is actually like pretty nice. I really enjoyed the story, which actually surprised me. I actually became like kind of invested in it. And this game kind of has a way, like just within the story, it gives you a reason to start over again within its like own like plot.
Right.
So to be able to go back and have a reason to like go back and play it a second time makes it a bit more like enjoyable for me, because I don't know, I think one of the most interesting things in this game for me was in my first playthrough, I made some bad choices and one of my friends died.
Oh no.
Like when it's like, and this kid was like, I don't know, I think it was like in the 11 or 12-year-old stage. So I progressed the game without them. And then when I went back to be able to save that kid and then see how they change in the future was a very, I don't know, just like interesting concept to me to be able to like see something like that. And it's very easy to lose characters in this game.
Yeah.
Like whether they be like friends or like just like adults that are growing up with you, or just like general like family members and stuff like that. Like it's very easy to lose characters. So to be able to go through another game or another playthrough and be able to like save them and see how that changes the future of the game, whether it is like good or bad, is I think a very interesting like concept for me. And I don't know, it's a very like interesting story to play through. If people are going to play this game, I suggest playing it at least twice.
Okay.
Because the playthrough isn't that long. It's like maybe the initial playthrough was like 5 hours and the follow-up playthrough was like 3 for me.
Well, that's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the way you describe this game, Matt, it's more so a visual novel with essentially a card system as kind of its companion component. I was wondering how that card system, holds up mechanically on its own. Could this be a scenario like you have in Inscription? Just because Inscription has the story stuff in the background, but with, I believe, Casey's mod for post-game support, you can just go straight into that quote-unquote mod and do the card mechanics straight up and do your runs that way. Would you say that Teenage Exocolonist is, their card mechanics, do you think they can stand up in its own where you can have a separate mode that just focuses on that? Or is this game essentially the visual novel aspect that actually makes the mechanics in that regard?
I think it's the visual novel that makes the mechanics.
Okay.
Because a lot of, like I said, the game is basically just play cards until you hit a certain score, right? And the cards themselves, like just as a static thing, if it was just the cards, they don't really have too much meaning.
Okay.
Like, because they're all more so tied to, hey, I got this like cool card because I was friends with this character at like this point in time, or these cards are better because of because you can have like equipment outside of the game, right? So like for example, like, oh, I have a pet, like I don't know, it's like a mix between like a giraffe and like a dog, and it helps me like farm, so it makes certain like physical cards for me better.
Okay.
Like it's that sort of like mechanic. So I don't know how you bring that sort of thing into a kind of like more roguelike. I guess you actually could have that more in like Casey's or any other like card game thing actually.
Okay. Well, I think if I do check this out, I'll keep that in mind that I'm going for it is a more visual novel experience. But yeah, no, definitely. That's something at first when you said the reveal, I wasn't quite on board, but you got me there, Matt. I think I'm on this colonist adventure right now as well, but I'll definitely check it out when I can. But yeah, I guess I'm also still on a quest to have a side mechanic card deck building roguelike, but we can discuss that when we find that. But yeah, where are you playing Teenage Exocolonist, and how can people get their hands on it right now?
It's on Steam actually, so you can just like buy it off Steam.
Okay, cool.
But Jared, hang on. Before we like go too far away from this topic, I want to ask you something.
Yes.
About like this sort of like game. Because when I was playing this game on my first playthrough, I played it like how I would choose to like live my own life.
Yeah.
Like I went into the mental field where I'm more so focused on like programming and engineering and that sort of thing. And when I played it the second time, I decided to do basically the opposite of like how I usually do it. I tried to play as someone who's like adventurous and social.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what that says about me as a person. But
sure.
do you ever play like your initial playthrough as a different personality from yourself in this kind of like game where you can choose your character's personality?
I feel like when I'm playing a game, it really depends what type of character I'm feeling and how that character. This kind of brings me back to Pentiment, right? Where when the first couple of hours with the protagonist, I was trying to get a feel, seeing what the options, the dialogue options I was given. And at the time, as I said during the episode, I skewed towards, oh, he's this playboy with a heart of gold. When I saw that those were some of the options that I can choose. And it really depends on how much, even though in these situations you're really given a blank slate, it really depends on how much additional information I'm given just to see, oh, what kind of world this is, how they would react to this, or what options am I given from that. That all kind of tailor what my playstyle will be. But, just in general, I think I tend to skew towards not necessarily a rogue type character. I forget sorry, would you call that character type or that archetype something similar to like a Nathan Drake? That
like a devil may care kind of like attitude.
Oh, like something like a puckish rogue. I believe.
Okay, yeah.
And so I kind of skew either towards that, but mostly not necessarily lawful good, but kind of general good, like like say we were playing Mass Effect, and I would skew towards Paragon. And for me personally, I try to skew towards that, but I'll also try to rely on kind of charisma, just because in those types of games, I want to talk my way around things. I want to generally avoid combat where I can, or fight at a distance. And I think I told you this again before, Matt, where when I do replay games, it's as much as I'll say, oh, maybe I'll take this opportunity to be more fiendish. Maybe I'll be, a renegade this time. I don't know. It really is hard for me to really do a polar opposite run, just because I don't know, that makes me feel icky. So I feel like that's where I stem in it, where I'll try to be more charismatic. I'll try to be more neutral good or whatever. But I'm not sure if that's speaking to me personally, but I feel like that's how I'm playing, where I'm not necessarily, sure, there's a bit of that mental gymnastics of what would I do in this situation, but it's maybe 25% what would I do in this situation mixed with, okay, how can I talk my way out of this, mixed in with whatever character trait I have assigned the protagonist at the time. So that's kind of how I go about those things.
And just like one more time, while we're talking about these kind of like play styles, if anybody is going to play this game, I would definitely suggest that if you decide to do a second playthrough, do not do like an optimal version of your first run.
Oh, okay.
Because one of the things that I really, really liked actually about the second playthrough is actually deviating away from what I initially did and viewing everything totally differently.
Okay.
Because there was one character who I just hated in this game, in my first playthrough, Jaren, and then I decided, okay, you know what? I'll just like befriend this character on my second playthrough, and befriending that character paints the whole first playthrough differently, and it perfectly explains why everything happened the way it did with that character. And I don't know, to get that kind of satisfaction and that kind of like, oh, like, aha, this is why they were like this, it's just so good. And I really, really suggest that you do not do a optimized playthrough until like you have a couple playthroughs under your belt.
Okay. That sounds really cool. And that actually made me giddy to really hear about. So,
one more thing, Jaren. Jaren, the title screen of this game changes as you play the game.
Nice. Nice.
Jaren, as you make friends, as people become your best friends in the game, they show up on the title screen.
Matt, I haven't played this game, but that's my chef kiss moment of the week. That's so good, Matt.
So good.
That's so good. I think when I finally get my hands on this, maybe we can try a spoiler cast episode dedicated to this. But Matt, color me interested in my life. What's it called? My life as a teenager, or
I was a teenage exocolonist.
Okay.
Yes.
That sounds cool. And hopefully one day, so will I. So Matt.
Yo.
Sort of on the topic of essentially staring at your own mortality as a teenage exocolonist, Matt, I had a moment this week where I was staring at my own mortality as a teenage girl band member. Matt, I need my obligatory Bang Dream Girls Band Party corner here in the Mistake Zone because Matt, at least for the Japanese version of the game, they had their 6th anniversary update stream, which announced the contents of the upcoming 6th anniversary update. For EN, this will most likely come sometime next year, since the EN server is around, at this point, 9 to 10 months behind, but usually the EN anniversary is in April. But Matt, it was a pretty hefty stream, and thanks to all the different, posters and YouTubers summarizing what the contents were, there were 3 things that stood out to me. One, there's a slight, not necessarily an art change, but there was a UI overhaul coming with the 6th anniversary update, and it heavily reminds me of Hatsune Miku's Colorful Stage or Project Sekai, just with kind of how the characters look now, how the costumes are handled, and just the basic UI. And it's really odd to see, as someone who is, again, jumping back and forth between Bang Dream and Colorful Stage right now, just to kind of see them congeal, at least look-wise, and look like the same title. But that's neither here or there. Matt, something that you might be more familiar with, the band Hello Happy World. They have the DJ Michelle, who is their bear mascot, and underneath it's Misaki playing her. Matt,
Jared, I'm pretty sure it's just a bear.
Yeah, it's true. Misaki is the 6th member. She's kind of like the producer. She writes the lyrics. But Matt, with this update, you'll finally have a few cards that let you actually have Misaki on stage. So this is something that the Bang Dream audience has been wanting for essentially 6 years now. And with the 6th anniversary update, you'll finally get your chance to have all 5 humans of Hello Happy World stand on the stage. But really, as much as I like Misaki, who wants that when you have Michelle? But Matt, finally, the one announcement that I honestly was hoping I would never see when it came to Bang Dream Girls Band Party. So as a kind of a review, Matt, in the game, there are card rarities. You have your basic B 2-star cards that no one really uses. You have your 3-star cards, and then you have the top tier rarity, the 4-star cards. And in terms of right now, Matt, there are 7 bands in the game with 5 members each. And you have you have 4 different attributes as well. But it took me around 4 years to have, at least of the 5 starting bands, at least one full 4-star team of one attribute for each of the 5 starting bands. And I'm working towards one more for one of the additional bands that they added to the game. But Matt, with the 6th anniversary update, they're introducing a 5-star rarity. And these cards have a 2% drop rate, they have higher stats, and their skills are more powerful. So Matt, it's essentially the power creep. In any live service game, you have essentially your, power level ceiling being risen. And when I saw the 5-star rarity be revealed in that stream, Matt, my first thought was, okay, I now know when I'm going to retire from Bang Dream Girls Band Party.
Damn.
Because when I think of all the live service games I've played in the past, I know the exact moment I dropped said game is when they rose the power ceiling, and it made me realize, oh, I don't actually want to go through all that again. And seeing this for Bang Dream Girls Band Party, for a game that, this is one of my favorite games. Not only mobile, but just in general, it blend together the slice of life anime aspect that I love and solid rhythm game mechanics. But for me personally, it was trying to get, at least one full 4-star team for each of the different bands. And when I see that, now there's a new rarity that has a even lower drop rate, that's my ceiling. That's where I think, okay, I can no longer play this kind of, more routinely, just so I would have enough premium currency to do rules for certain banners. It's one of those, my optimal teams aren't optimal anymore. And that's when I stop trying to ladder to at least top 1,000 to get the maximum, rewards. And this is just me playing casually, playing any songs that I like, but not doing the daily login, not really paying attention to where I ladder. But yeah, Matt, I don't know about you, but for me, any time a service game has, and of course you have to raise the power level at some point, or at least the power ceiling, but seeing a new rarity just makes what I've been working towards right now just not feel that fulfilling anymore. And of course, I've been playing this game for almost 4 years now, which is a lot longer than I can say for a lot of the other service games that I've touched in the past. So it's been a good run, Matt. But yeah, the moment I saw those 5 stars on the card, I just, it was weird. It was that weird feeling of, okay, my Bang Dream quote unquote career is only this much longer now. And possibly, I mentioned it before a few weeks ago for the Morphonica collab with that time I was reincarnated as a slime. I think the moment that collab ends and then I finish that event, I get all the cards for it, hopefully. I think that might be when I'm done. Or it could be the poetry thing of when the 6th anniversary comes around to EN, I'll do my free pulls, and that's that, Matt. But yeah, staring at my Bang Dream mortality this week was a weird feeling to know that, okay, I now know when I'm about to stop this game. But my final question for you, Matt, for this segment is, do you have any kind of similar experiences like that with a game where the power ceiling was raised? And is that something you kind of welcome, or is that also a dropping out point for you?
I don't think that I've ever stuck with a game long enough to hit a power ceiling raise. Right. Because I'm the type of person who goes hard on a game for a little bit and then stops. Yeah. If anything, actually, Jaren, I think I might be the opposite. When I see a power ceiling get raised, I actually get interested in the game again, just to be able to go back in and, kick it with everybody at the same-ish power level. Right. Before everybody, veers off again into super high-leveled gear.
For sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it really does depend on the game. I think something for an MMO, I think that initial chase is really cool, and especially with that social kind of environment. But I guess for something like a Bang Dream, where you are you unfortunately need this to kind of rank up and then keep your high scores and whatnot. I think it's a bit different there. But Matt, it's been a good run. It's been a good run, Matt.
Jaren, but what if when you go in for your free pulls, you get sick pulls, Jaren?
Yeah, but again, I'll get sick pulls, but I won't have a full team of sick pulls, unfortunately, of that same attribute, because that's how they get you, Matt.
Jaren, what if you do, Jaren? What if you just get the most blessed RNG?
Oh man, that would be the dream, Matt. But I don't know, Matt. I feel like once the collabs are done, I think that's gonna be it for me, Matt.
Damn.
But speaking of Bang Dream news, I got my first all perfect expert full combo this week, Matt. I felt pretty good about that. I felt pretty good about that.
Congrats.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. But yeah, that's the Bang Dream Corner for this week. Until next time, Matt. Until next time, I have to share my degeneracy with you.
I.
So, Matt.
Yeah.
Speaking about raising the power ceiling, what about raising the content ceiling with Vampire Survivors and the DLC that came out? Was it, I think, a month ago today or so? Around that time. It's been a month.
Yeah.
But Matt, this was something that, we mentioned last week on our 2022 recap. But here it is, Matt. Vampire Survivors' first major DLC, Legacy of the Moonspell. And Matt, we didn't really get a chance to go through this, but I finished the DLC, got all the was blessed again with all the Vampire Survivors achievements. But Matt, as fans of Vampire Survivors, what did you think of the DLC?
Jaren, I mostly like the DLC. I don't like the new stage.
So with the Legacy of the Moonspell, one of the biggest features here is one new stage, Mount Moonspell, and it was kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but it was touted as essentially the biggest Vampire Survivors level released. And I know everyone was initially thinking, but essentially these levels are quote unquote infinite. But with Mount Moonspell, it is divided into different sections. There's like a forest area, there's like a temple area, a snowy area, different biomes within this one level. And I think in theory, Matt, I like the idea of Mount Moonspell. I like the idea of, for the most part, Vampire Survivors is the pseudo roguelite. And the idea of an open world roguelite, I think, could be really cool. And as a foundation, I think Mount Moonspell could be honestly really expanded upon with different, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but like even the different biomes, other than, aesthetics, there isn't really much to differentiate them between each other, because, correct me if I'm wrong, do they have their own unique enemies, their own unique bosses, and kind of things like that? Or is it just kind of window dressing at the base of it?
No, they have their own unique enemies. And like there are, I guess, mini bosses, for lack of a better way to say them, like scattered around the areas. So like there is a decent like difference, and of course like each area also has like the preset items that you can get in each area. But like other than that, yeah.
I think my thing with it is that I didn't necessarily properly, I guess, explore the area, just because I feel like I didn't really have any incentive to. I think the only mini boss I really found was like that giant skeleton. But other than that, correct me if I'm wrong, you only unlock one character from that level. And then from there, it's, hey, complete the challenges, unlock this character. And once I unlocked that one character and I replayed, Mount Moonspell like one or two different other times just to see what the different biomes were like, I kind of went back into my old habits of just going to the library to grind all of these different challenges to unlock all the different characters again. Because as I was saying before, I feel like Mount Moonspell could have been cool, but for me personally, without having more reason to explore it other than for curiosity's sake, like I had no reason to really play that level specifically, just because, again, I didn't spend as much time as I thought I would with this DLC. Don't get me wrong, there are 8 new characters, 13 new weapons, new music tracks, but I'm at essentially endgame Vampire Survivors, where I have my go-to build. I know what I want to build towards. I know what I want to do. There's little reason for me to really experiment. Like, I got a feel for the new weapons when I did all of the character challenges to unlock, what I needed to unlock. But from there, I feel like as much as I love Vampire Survivors, I'm so set on what my end game run looks like that it was hard for me to deviate from that, especially with all these new content and knowing that these characters, these new items really don't do anything for me other than me liking their aesthetic. So as much as I can't knock this DLC because once again, it's still a steal, it's still a bargain. Aesthetically, it looks so cool. I feel like for me personally, I'm so stuck in my Vampire Survivors ways right now where even though it did offer a lot of content, it wasn't enough for me to, keep returning to it once I got all the new achievements there was to get. But yeah, that was kind of my pessimistic view of the DLC. But how are you feeling towards it overall, Matt?
I actually kind of liked a lot of the new weapons that they added in this DLC.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really change my kind of like end game god build that I used to like tend to go towards, but it did for me open up a couple new avenues of builds that I like to do now. Like in particular, I think actually Summon Knight went into my like new usual build because I think that's just like such a good screen clear. But like Silverwind in particular is one of the ones that really opened up a new build for me. Because just because of the fact that Silverwind upgrades with, I can't remember the name of the red heart like passive item that also upgrades garlic. Like the fact that I have a reason to get that red heart item now also lets me like, take garlic now. Because I used to think that garlic wasn't really that good of a weapon.
Right.
But if I'm going to get its upgrade with another weapon anyways, it kind of opened it up for me because I'm kind of like really enjoying playing just HP builds now with that.
Right.
Of like being able to just get Silverwind, get garlic, get building towards like Buffalo, the one with the upgraded whip and the upgraded other whip. Like being able to put those all together and just like, I don't know, that kind of like stacking item is build is very like interesting to me. But as far as like the other stuff goes, like the characters, I think they're okay. I've been trying to use Babiona because I think her concept of being able to like, she has no cooldowns, it just depends on you moving around to shoot her stuff.
Right.
Is interesting. And I'm trying to like make a build around that, but I don't know. I can't really like figure out an optimal way to do that. But like, yeah, generally like I think most of the new items are okay. I think a lot of the new characters are kind of like meh. I don't really like the Menya and Shuto. Like that kind of like timed thing where they're really strong for a bit and then you're like a bit weaker outside of it.
Are there Megalo variants? Just because I knew those characters in particular were just money sinks at that point where I had to essentially rebuy all my upgrades in the optimal path just so I could have enough gold to purchase those, but I haven't actually played as them yet.
I think they're okay. They're just basically the powered up version of themselves. Like, it's basically just like playing as like one of the super like secret characters that are like a lot stronger than any of the other characters. Like they're basically on that same level, I think.
Alrighty, point taken. But yeah, Matt, with how Legacy of the Moonspell turned out, is this how you kind of foresee any other paid DLC coming our way? Just handful of characters, handful of weapons, and a stage similar to Mount Moonspell? Or and if so, is this something that you're okay with forking over the $1 or $2 to $3 price tag?
Yeah, for like $2 to $3, I think it's like perfectly fine. I actually don't expect them to, or actually expect them to do maybe something different next time. Like I don't expect them to just put out another level like Mount Moonspell. I don't know what it would be, but just with the way that like they kind of do weird stuff with this game, I would expect them to maybe introduce like a new mode or something. Like, oh, now you're the monsters or something. But like something like that, I would actually more expect as the next DLC instead of just like Legacy of the Moonspell version 2 or whatever. Right.
I know when I was so Vampire Survivors has its aesthetic, this Castlevania kind of or not necessarily vampire, but that Castlevania aesthetic. And I don't know, man, I was kind of hoping that for one of the future DLCs, they kind of do explore something more modern, some sort of like cityscape, something more urban. And I think that would be a kind of a nice contrast just because of what we have compared to what we have right now. But I think if moving forward we have something like Mount Moon's spell at the same scale with, you know, these bigger open world environments, I would kind of hope that they give you more incentive to actually play through the level other than curiosity, just because that was what I was kind of thinking of. Once you unlocked the first character, a coffin would pop up somewhere else in the map and you would have to go, like, giving you more reason to go through all these different levels. And maybe it's just because I'm not necessarily in the mood for secret hunting, but again, like, as I said, I had less of an incentive to really replay this level when I have such an optimum build. So I think for me, I just have to kind of get into that zone of trying to experiment again with different things. But yeah, I think more reason to experience or to go through the stage to kind of guide you to explore the different biomes would be appreciated for the future. But yeah, again, Matt, like you, I think I kind of want to see what else they can do mode wise with the Vampire Survivor kind of, you know, backdrop or foundation, just instead of more, not, again, if they were just to release, you know, several more packs like this, like, no complaints here, but I am curious to see what else they can do with Vampire Survivors as a platform.
I mean, Jaren, if you want a more modern setting, Jaren, HoloCure is right there.
I still need to get that working on the Steam Deck, and I still need them to add the ID characters for me, Matt. But one of these days. Well, Matt, that has been another mostly beefy episode of the Mistake Zone. We were able to talk about Teenage Exocolonist. We were able to talk about us getting extreme. We were able to talk about some not vampires, Matt, not vampires, and some our band life coming to an end. But Matt, again, I want to thank you as always for joining me in the Mistake Zone this week. I want to thank all our friends out there for joining us as well and listening in. I want to thank Extreme Energy Drinks. I want to thank, you know, Friendship and Cards and the Heart of the Cards. And I want to thank Vampire Survivors that aren't actual vampires. And I want to thank something else that's completely forgetting my mind right now. Girl bands. I want to thank girl bands, Matt. But yeah, Matt, I think another beefy video game centered episode. I think next week, Matt, I'm going to promise you right now, I'm going to watch some anime, Matt. I'm going to watch some anime this week.
Are you, Jaren? Are you?
No, I'm probably just going to talk about Riders Republic again next week, but we'll see, Matt.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Rip anime.
But Matt, this has been the Mistake Zone for yet another week, and please take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of anime.
No, don't say that, Matt. Don't say that.